to shut it off any way you can, smash it, destroy it, whatever. So we looked at him and says, "No, just how are we going to get back there?" He says, "That is no problem for us." He says, "Here in this project, we have solved the problems of space and time. We can send you anywhere we want at any time we want. We will send you back to the decks of the Eldridge, and it's up to you from that point on." Well, make a long story short, he did send us back, the equipment sent us back, and we took up axes and smashed the equipment. When enough was smashed, of course, the generator started to wind down, and we knew it was over. So we went out on deck, at that point having accomplished our task, and that's when we saw the sailors buried in the steel. There was still a haze, and it took about 2 minutes, approximately, for the fields to collapse. The ship did return to the harbor at the same point. Before it did, however, the episode I referred to earlier, Duncan looking at me and like, "Aren't I going to go with him?" He jumped overboard and he disappeared. As we found out much later, he returned to that project sometime in late 82 or early 83. We don't know exactly when. Eventually he died there.
Al, I'm curious. What do you think would have occurred, or what's the best guess about what would have occurred had you not been able to get back on board and smash that equipment?
Neumann's assumption at that time was that the hyperspace bubble would grow to the point where it could overwhelm the Earth itself. And they were concerned, theoretically, of course, whether it was a practicality or not. And they said there's enough fuel in the generator supply to keep those equipments running for 30 days if they didn't break down first. And it could theoretically engulf the Earth. The Earth itself theoretically could disappear in a hyperspace bubble. In any case, that was a theoretical concern, and they weren't about to sit around and wait for it to happen. So we did smash the equipment. The ship returned to the harbor. Duncan jumped overboard. I remained with the ship. The 4 sailors died, and of course the boarding party reported what had happened. They sent another party on board ship to bring it back to the out of the harbor back to the rear part of the Navy Yard because there was no other damage to the ship.
Al, how many personnel total were there on the ship?
At that time, there was approximately 21. I remember the numbers. 21. It was a normal complement, it was 150 officers and men, but there was a skeleton crew for just the test.
Do you
so we
know?
had a 4-day inquiry.
Do you know how many of those are still alive today?
Very few. I know of about 4 enlisted men and 1 officer other than Duncan and myself who are still around. It's possible there are others, but I'm not sure of that.
How many actually died?
Both directly. At that time, there were 4 who died. There were 2 others who jumped overboard besides Duncan and myself, and they disintegrated immediately. It raises a good issue. Why did we survive and the others didn't? And others who disappeared, and some of those on the surface of the ship went in the funny farm because they were totally insane.
How do you know that they disappeared or disintegrated, rather? Why
the stories were they were seen to disappear, and of course there was a shortage of the complement. When they did a nose count, so to speak, later, there were several missing.
I understand that, but why wouldn't you presume the possibility that they too moved into a different time and just did not get back?
Unknown. That's an unknown. We can assume anything you want.
So it's definitely possible.
Very definitely.
Yeah, the reason I say that is because that's what occurred to you, so one could reasonably presume that occurred to them. They simply may not have gone to the same controlled experiment with a return that you did, so they may have lived out their lives in some other time.
That is very possible. It is definitely an unknown, but it's almost anything can be assumed possible. In any case, we had a 4-day board of inquiry. What went wrong? I gave my report, which included the trip to the future. Nobody believed me, including Dr. von Neumann. And after all of this, the Navy said, well, let's try one more test. We have a lot of spares and equipment. Rip out the damaged equipment and have the ship ready for another test. And this was done in the harbor, the outer harbor of Philadelphia in October of 43. And they decided to do the 1940 routine, put the ship on station and remove all personnel and control the equipment by remote cable.